One of the most influential energy gatherings of the year took place last week. We'll find out what the tone of that meeting was and how biofuels are viewed throughout the industry. And it's time for this week's Farmer Forum. We'll stay focused on biofuels and learn what's happening in Nebraska and Ohio.
Live from the sandhills of Hump Day via Farm Journal broadcast, this is AgriTalk. This morning we begin with a conversation with Emily Skor from Growth Energy. Then it's our Farmer Forum with panelists Greg Anderson and Anthony Bush. Directly following the news, Margie Eckelkamp from The Scoop. I'm the handsome newsman Davis Michelson. Now, here's the host of AgriTalk, Chip Flory.
All right, Davis. Hey, thank you so much. Appreciate that. The sandhills of Hump Day?
That's right.
What?
That's right. Yeah, you can you can see, the summit from here, but we got some climbing to do before she's done. Yeah.
Gotcha. The way you draw a picture with your words, Davis, it's really, really kind of fascinating to me.
I'm
It might even be clinical. We don't know yet.
I fancy myself the Bob Ross of modern verbiage. Just some happy little words,
Just the hair.
We'll put a descriptive term over there. Oh, there we go.
Oh, my goodness. Glad you are joining us on this Wednesday morning. Emily Skor was at CERAWeek.
Yeah.
Last week. She sat in on a panel on biofuels, of course. And we are going to find out not only what they talked about on the panel, but just the general attitude toward biofuels at this huge energy industry gathering that took place. And we'll get to the bottom line there with Emily. And then we got the Farmer Forum. Greg Anderson is very much involved with Clean Fuels Alliance America. And so we'll keep the conversation going on biofuels. And new voice from over in Ohio, Anthony Bush, is going to be joining us as well.
Word to the Eastern Belt. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's get to it. What you got?
Well, I've got the National Weather Service short-term outlook here. Rainy, stormy weather across the southeast coast through Thursday. Unsettled weather arrives over northwest today. Warming trend begins over the central U.S. on Thursday. It is cold outside my back door today.
Yeah, I'm 30 degrees here in northeast Iowa, too.
We're 30 as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is chilly. There's no question about it. And it's going to be more active. There is some activity in the outlook with some more precipitation, too.
Well, Chip, this is interesting. A Bloomberg article discusses a potential shift in U.S. crop planting dynamics, with soybeans possibly surpassing corn due to President Biden's decarbonization plan and increased demand for soybean oil for renewable diesel production. While corn has historically been favored by American farmers, the surge in green energy subsidies could lead to soybeans taking the top spot in the future. Chip, an analyst, and this is important, an analyst charged, the prediction is a little too focused on unrealized domestic demand. I have one word for this article, South America. Am I right?
Well, there's that. There's no question about that. But, Davis, this is the expansion of the crush capacity in the renewable diesel story that we've been talking about for almost 3 years on AgriTalk. And Bloomberg is doing an article on it now like it's something new, fresh.
Yes.
I mean, it takes time. I get that. It takes time for these major changes in the industry to happen. But we've been talking about it for quite some time.
We're already on the other end of it thinking, maybe our expectations are overdone here on this. I thought it was interesting. Right. A USDA has identified bird flu infected cows in 4 dairy herds in Kansas and Texas, and tests in other herds are pending. Dairy cows in New Mexico have also exhibited symptoms of the illness. Initial analysis by a USDA lab did not detect a genetic change in the virus to make it easily transmissible between mammals, which means the infected cows are unlikely to infect other cows or, more importantly, humans.
Right. The conversation that we had with the Kansas Animal Health Commissioner, Dr. Justin Smith, yesterday, we went through so many of these issues. If you did not get a chance to listen to it, please go back and listen to that conversation. It's got a lot of the answers that people are looking for.
Well, Chip, China's hog herd will likely remain in surplus this year. This despite new government targets to tame oversupply. Earlier this month, Beijing adjusted the national target for normal retention of breeding sows, but increasingly productive sows and a reluctance in hog farms to destock will keep herd size at high levels and prices low. U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai is currently reviewing China's request for consultations at the World Trade Organization regarding U.S. subsidies for electric vehicles. China claims, of course, that these subsidies provided under the Inflation Reduction Act are discriminatory and have distorted the global EV supply chain market. USDA has authorized the release of emergency haying and grazing on CRP acres nationwide to livestock producers affected by wildfires in Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Texas. Says Kelly Atkins, Texas Farm Service Agency Director, quote, "If you have CRP acres and want to help wildfire-impacted ranchers, please contact your local FSA office." Chip, as I understand, this is nationwide. Get in touch with your FSA office with your CRP acres.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and bale up those acres and send the hay to the areas that have been hit with fires, looks like they're going to make that possible for you to do that.
Yep. And finally, here the EPA agreed with recommendations from its scientific advisory panel on atrazine. The recommendations remove several poor quality studies that played a role in the agency's recommendation for an ultra-low aquatic level of concern for atrazine. Chip.
Okay, yeah, we need to keep watch on that as well. Thank you, Davis. Let's bring in Margie Eckelkamp, editor of The Scoop. Good morning, Margie.
Good morning, Chip.
Hey, it seems like delivering seed and crop protection with the planter pass is more popular than ever this year. Is that right?
So one of my favorite parts of my job is we get to spot some trends, right? So back in 2019, we actually named at The Scoop the new product of the year was Rocket Seed. So this was a product by Compass Minerals, and it was a seed fluency agent plus a crop nutrition formulation for corn and soybeans. That product then was acquired by Koch Agronomic Services. And so now it is known as Protivate. And that was just the start of a wave of these products, as you alluded to, that are applied at the time of planting, so directly in the planter box, to provide a replacement for either talc or graphite, a standalone product, and also provide an additional benefit. So now in all, Chip, there are 20-some of these products specifically formulated for corn and or soybeans, and they are providing that seed fluency to focus on seed singulation, as well as maybe a biopesticide or a biocontrol agent or a crop nutrition package. What's interesting about the crop nutrition is that these are really formulated to help seeds get a strong start as farmers may be planting in cool or wet soils. And what's also interesting about these products that are integrating the biological control agents is it's really helping those crops get off to a strong start in fighting pests. I share with you, we did a roundup of these products in February. We've had 2 new entrants since then. So I think there's going to be a lot of pickup trucks driving to the field this spring and having some extra things to sprinkle in the planter box.
Gotcha. Good stuff, Margie. Thank you so much. Learn more about it. www.thedailyscoop.com. Emily Skor is next.
Do you suffer from talking on the radio phobia? No problem. Send us a tweet at #AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip Flora. Glad that you are with us on this Wednesday morning. CERAWeek was last week. It is a global gathering of basically everything energy. It's put on by S&P Global. It normally doesn't leave many stones unturned when it comes to what is happening in the global energy markets. The list of speakers at CERAWeek is unbelievable. You've got energy companies, you've got governments from around the world, you've got energy consumers. They're all represented. And one of those speakers was Growth Energy CEO Emily Skor, and she joins us right now. Emily, it's great to talk with you again. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Chip. It's always great to talk with you.
Good, good, good. So, did I describe CERAWeek adequately? I mean, it's a huge meeting with a huge influence.
You did. It's been described as the Davos of energy. It really is the who's who globally, government, private sector, every part of the value chain. And here's what's unique. This is the place where the leaders throughout the globe are talking about the investment, the exciting things in the space of energy, but biofuels traditionally has not been on the agenda until now.
Okay.
And now we are, and that's what's different. And that's what was so exciting to be there, to make the business case for bioethanol as a fuel and potentially as a feedstock.
Emily, what changed? What got biofuels on the agenda?
So part of it, honestly, Chip, is what's happening in the renewable diesel space. And so a lot of it is if you're coming to the conversation through the lens of the oil and gas sector, they're looking at renewable diesel, and it's getting them to start thinking differently. They're looking at their ESG responsibilities. It's getting them to think differently about things like E15, and they're looking at SAF. And so there's a confluence of a lot of things, a lot of opportunities, and suddenly people are taking a look at ethanol in a way that they hadn't before. They're looking at, can I invest in an ethanol company? What kind of business partnership or alliance or JV do I need to be forming? Because I need this feedstock, because I need it to be able to produce low carbon fuel, me as an oil or gas company. So that's the change. That was very much the tenor of the conversation. People were very pleased to see Growth Energy there and to hear what we had to say and what I had to say. So it was good. It was good for the industry that we are finally entering those kinds of conversations.
Okay. Help me understand a little bit more about how the conversation has progressed to this point. I would assume that the transition to electricity has been a very hot topic of discussion over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it absolutely is, because it is forcing top of mind for everyone in liquid fuels. What is the future of liquid fuels? How do we make sure that liquid fuels, that we could preserve our ability to thrive and grow in a low carbon market? And the great news is, Chip, ethanol, if you look at biodiesel, renewable diesel, SAF, and ethanol, right now, ethanol, you can blend E15. We don't need a lot of infrastructure. We don't need to overhaul the system, and we don't need any tax credits, unfortunately, like we do on something like SAF. So the conversation really was getting to higher blends, because that's how we decarbonize the internal combustion engine. That's how we compete with electric vehicles. And then what's the potential for something like sustainable aviation fuel? Okay. And what do those business partnerships look like to be able to create that?
Okay. What is the level of understanding about the capabilities of biofuels in reducing carbon? Is it well understood, or is there still a lot of education that has to take place?
There's a lot of education to be done.
Okay.
And so most people really don't understand it. And they also don't understand the power of agriculture and the responsiveness of agriculture. And what's great is you look at the RFS and you look at the late 2000s, look at how quickly agriculture responded to that market opportunity of going from E0 to E10, how quickly we were able to mobilize and produce. And so it's really educating kind of the oil and gas side of liquid fuels, that if there's a huge market opportunity, we, agriculture and ethanol, we can respond quickly. We can mobilize quickly. We have the capacity to meet demand.
Yeah. Yeah. Emily, it seems to me that there's another component here, and it's just how well funded the low carbon effort is going forward because of the Inflation Reduction Act. That the IRA spent the money, just didn't distribute it. Now, as that money is being distributed and divvied up, it's getting everybody's attention to the amount of money that's available through the IRA, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. It's been a total game changer. It's opening up avenues of investment and opportunity for innovation, because they weren't economical before. And you need those tax credits and incentives to be able to say, okay, we're going to take a chance. We're going to try this new technology that otherwise we wouldn't be able to afford to invest in. We wouldn't be, it's
Yeah.
It's de-risking really the investment opportunities and the innovation opportunities. Now, there's a fair amount of healthy conversation. If you have a change in administration, what does that do to the investment
Right.
opportunities? And here's what's interesting is, I continue to hear a lot of the market wants this, consumers want this, the customers want this. We can weather shifts because we want to be able to compete in this way too. And that's exciting, Chip. That's exciting.
Okay. Boy, before we run out of time, Emily, let's talk specifically about the panel that you were on, the title, Business Models to Scale Biofuel Supply. What was the primary focus?
So the primary focus is, and these are the questions. Emily, are you going to see more consolidation? Are you going to see more JVs between oil and ethanol in the future?
Okay.
And it's an interesting question because we, on the ethanol side of the equation, we continue to be kind of pure play ethanol producers or kind of on the agribusiness side of the equation. And we're starting to see, and we've seen already that there are alliances forming in terms of on the SAF side of the equation, ethanol producer will provide the feedstock with the technology provider and then an offtake agreement with the airlines. So it was fun to be at a place where I'm getting questions on the business side of the equation, not just the policy side of the equation.
Right. Very interesting. Okay. What's next? What is the next step that these potential partners in developing biofuels for SAF or renewable diesel, for the list of items that you were talking about, what is the next step that they want to see?
Well, the next step that I told them we have to have, it comes back to Washington, D.C., and it comes back to policy, Chip. We've got to get guidance coming out of Treasury on 40B and 45Z. We've got to get that E15 summer waiver. And so we do need these policy decisions and clarity and consistency because, of course, what does business need? They need clarity and they need certainty so that they can have the market. So all roads do lead back to Washington.
Yeah.
But we have a handle on that. We understand what we need, and we're talking every day to the policymakers to try and get those answers as quickly as we can.
Okay, so the clarity on the 40B and the 45Z credits is the final adjustments to the GREET model. Vilsack said back on March 1 that it would be weeks and not months for the update. Tomorrow's going to be 4 weeks. Any indication? Have they given you any indication of when that's going to be released?
They have not. We continue to hear weeks, not months. You're right. It's been 4 weeks. And as antsy as we get each day, they have to get it right. We know that. Secretary Vilsack knows that. And so we'll just continue to just keep pressing every single day.
During this process, Emily, over the last 4 weeks, I would say that the level of understanding among casual observers about just how important the GREET model is and what these final adjustments are, the level of understanding of how important it is has increased dramatically, hasn't it?
It has. It has. Just the fact that people know GREET, that acronym is something, a shorthand that people are using on a daily basis. And the good news is that wasn't the case 2 years ago. So we've made progress. We've crossed that threshold where Treasury has said, yes, we have to use this model as a baseline when we're looking at ethanol, when we're evaluating ethanol and its carbon intensity. So that was huge success. And now, all right, if you're going to tweak the model as they said they would do, you have to hew as closely as you can to that GREET, to the original GREET. So that we have the maximum flexibility to innovate, to invest, to get credit for what we're doing.
Yep. That's the key right there. Credit for what we are doing, what has already been done. As you know, what we're talking about is tracking the carbon intensity score of corn production so that ethanol producers have a better idea of what they are what kind of a product they're putting out. Emily, great conversation. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. That is Emily Skor. She is the CEO of Growth Energy. We got the Farmer Forum coming your way next here on AgriTalk.
Time for Markets Now with the experts from Pro Farmer.
Joining us now, Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady. Beej, some pressure on corn and soybeans here this morning. Let's start there.
Yeah, follow through selling, Chip, and,
Yep.
and just no real interest at all in covering short positions. Now we have USDA's prospective plantings and quarterly grain stocks reports out tomorrow morning, and despite the funds being heavily short in both those markets, just like I said, just no real interest in covering shorts.
Okay, they're trying to cover some shorts in the wheat market.
Yeah, so SRW contracts and HRS contracts are mildly firmer. The HRW contracts are still a little bit lower. So we did face some follow-through selling in that market earlier, but like you mentioned, just a little bit of corrective buying creeping into some of those markets.
Yeah, boy, the grains just feel like they're on hold going into those reports tomorrow.
Yeah, probably just a tad skittish, I would guess.
Yeah.
Probably not from the prospective plantings, but more so from the quarterly grain stocks, which have provided some surprises, especially for corn over the years.
Gotcha. Okay. Boy, after the heavy pressure that we saw on the cattle complex yesterday, some slight losses don't feel too bad today.
No, they've tried to, live cattle and feeder cattle have tried to work to the upside. There just isn't a lot of traction there. So we'll have to see how this all plays out as the session goes. But bulls have lost momentum. Bears have momentum now. And we have a technical breakdown on the daily charts. Mm-hmm. And it likely to pull the cash market lower with the heavy selling in futures this week. But just kind of pause mode here this morning. And hog futures are trading mostly to the upside as the cash index continues to rise.
All right. Good stuff, Brian. Thank you, buddy. That is Pro Farmer editor Brian Grady on Markets Now.
Opinions expressed on AgriTalk do not necessarily reflect the views of Farm Journal Broadcasting, affiliate stations, or sponsors. Knowledge is power. We're here to charge your batteries. AgriTalk.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. Glad that you are with us. It's Wednesday. That means it's time for the Farmer Forum here on AgriTalk. I'm going to go ahead and get this started right now. Greg Anderson over in eastern Nebraska. Greg, it's good to talk with you. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great, Chip, and it is a chilly morning here in eastern Nebraska. My temperature gauge shows about 23 degrees. It's cloudy, but we're thankful for some moisture that we received over the past couple of days.
Yeah. How much did you end up getting? We got almost an inch in northeast Iowa.
I almost doubled up on you there, Chip.
Wow.
For a rare time. I had 1.7 inches of rain Sunday and Monday, and then it turned to ice. It took the rain gauge up. We got some ice, a little bit of power outages here on Monday. Nothing terribly drastic, though. And then just a skiff of snow to top it off. So, thinking that coming up here in a couple of days, Good Friday, a lot of people in the gardens like to plant their potatoes. I don't think that's going to be happening in these parts this year.
Well, it's a little early this year.
It is.
It is.
But I think the gardeners want to get out there just as much as the corn and soybean farmers want to get out there.
I think you're right. Plant the potatoes. Got to seed oats on Good Friday too, right?
There you go. That's right.
Yep. That's right. Okay. Stand by, Greg. Let's welcome in a new voice to the Farmer Forum, Anthony Bush over in Ohio. How are you, Anthony?
I'm doing pretty good. A little overcast here today and got a little rain last night here, but we're a little on the dry side around here. Has been a really mild winter.
Okay. Around here, tell us where around here is. And since it is your first time on the Farmer Forum, tell us about your operation.
Well, my name is Anthony Bush. I live and farm in central Ohio, about an hour north of Columbus. And I'm a fourth generation family farm. I have number 5 farming with me full time. We raise corn, soybeans, and wheat. And I've been heavily involved in the national corn growers and Ohio corn growers for years. And so that's where we're at.
Gotcha. So with NCGA, what's been your focus?
My focus over the years has always been on the policy side of things.
Okay.
Tax policy, farm bill policy work, crop insurance, those types of things have always been my interest.
Gotcha. You got to be frustrated as I am over this farm bill then.
Oh, it's just horrible. I was at a farm bill forum that Ohio State put on there a few weeks ago, and I did an interview for Ohio Country Journal, and the panel said, well, the farmers, they're not hearing from farmers. I said, you're hearing plenty from farmers. We're just tired of talking to deaf ears.
Yeah. Oh man, good point. What a great point. And the thing is, the leadership in the House, and I don't think I'm wrong on this, Anthony. Tell me if I am. The leadership in the House, I'm talking about Congressman Thompson or Chairman Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I really believe he wants to get this bill. He wants action on this bill as soon as possible. Is that right?
I absolutely believe that. GT's a great guy. My standard line, there are 535 members of Congress. I believe there are 450 really good ones. But when an idea gets to the top in leadership, that's where good ideas go to die.
Yeah.
But Glenn Thompson's a great guy, and internally there's a lot of agreement. But when you put the full House involved in trying to get something done, they just can't agree on anything, and it's very frustrating.
Absolutely.
I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Anthony. Well, thank you for bringing your perspective to the Farmer Forum. You know how this works. Jump into the conversation. I'm going to go back to Greg, because Greg, a lot of the projects that you are working with and focused on at Clean Fuels Alliance America, renewable diesel, the sustainable aviation fuel, it seems to be driving the biofuel conversation into the rest of the energy industry, according to the conversation that we just had with Emily Skor from Growth Energy. That's got to be encouraging to you, isn't it?
Oh, it's tremendous, Chip. There's no doubt about that. Increased demand for low carbon fuels. I've seen here just recently over the last maybe 2-3 years, we always talked about B20, a 20% biodiesel blend blended with petroleum oil. That conversation is now shifted to B50 and most often B100.
Right.
And the reason for that is helping diesel customers who are under carbon reduction pressure to lower their carbon footprint with their existing fleet without the need to wait for electric vehicles and all of the infrastructure and grid improvements that will be needed for low carbon electricity. Really interesting report just issued by Clean Freight Coalition has calculated the cost to completely electrify the U.S. commercial trucking industry at upwards of $1 trillion. I mean, just think of that.
Right.
We have low carbon fuels that are drop-in fuels, especially with renewable diesel that can reduce carbon right now. And, we're better, cleaner now. And that's really the tagline that Clean Fuels has used, and how accurate it is. It's a great tagline: clean, better, cleaner, and now.
Yeah. Greg, freight haulers, they're not waiting for electricity, are they? I mean, if a low or zero carbon liquid fuel alternative comes along that they can use, they're going to jump on that before they'll go electric, won't they?
Oh, absolutely. And we saw that at our recent conference with the Clean Fuels Alliance America conference. We had the largest private fleet represented there in the United States, and they're wanting to go all in on B100. They want to go all in on RD wherever it works, and that's pretty exciting. We saw the global leader in the production of locomotives with rail has just approved B11, expected to go to B20 in this year, 2024. Second largest locomotive manufacturer has approved biodiesel blends of B20. I mean, this is just continuing to grow, and it's happening pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Anthony, when you think about the efforts that have been put into developing the the biofuels markets for whether it be a soybean oil-based market or an ethanol market. How do you feel about the return that we're getting at this point?
Just one quick little point.
Yeah.
One of my favorite hobbies is I have a show truck, a semi. It's an old
Okay.
Mack and everything. So I just spent 2 days last week at the Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville. And Mr. Anderson was just talking about electric vehicles and low carbon fuels. They had an electric semi down there in one of the booths. And not only was it kind of the laughing stock, but there was zero interest. And,
Really?
people looking around it or anything. It's just not what people are looking for and don't believe it's viable. And so that's just a little side note from
That's interesting.
my trip to the Mid-America Truck Show. But, Emily Skor, whom I know a little bit over the years, talked a lot about the GREET model.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the biggest parts of making the GREET model work for an ethanol plant is being able to capture and store carbon.
Mm-hmm.
So in Ohio, it's all about the geology around an ethanol plant, but they're talking about drilling wells to sequester carbon down, and put this down in the ground. This is a very evolving field, but in order for ethanol to meet its carbon intensity scores, this is extremely important. Like Iowa, I'm not sure about Nebraska, but Iowa does not have the geology to be able to do this.
Right.
So they're actually talking about, and Iowa has 40 some ethanol plants.
Yep.
So in order to participate in the sustainable aviation fuel market, we got to be able to capture and store this carbon somehow. And so they're actually talking about building pipelines.
Yep.
It's a big issue with landowners, and so is drilling wells. We talked about this in our board meeting yesterday about drilling wells and how does that work for adjacent landowners and how far away. And, Ohio Corn Marketing Board is actually going to be contracting some legal services to explore this because it's a very new and upcoming thing that without that ability, we won't be able to play in this SAF market.
Yeah. Boy, Greg, Anthony did a great job of describing the situation there. And it is coming around to that playing in the sustainable aviation fuel market is kind of where everybody's directed right now, isn't it?
Getting a lot of attention. In fact, at our conference, we had 2 major airlines represented. They were on a panel and they were saying that we need this fuel right now. I think last year domestic production of SAF was around 100 million gallons, and they're wanting 6 billion gallons by 2030.
Man, holy smokes!
He's exactly right. By 2050, their projected global demand's 175-ish billion gallons. But ethanol is not a 1-to-1 ratio conversion to SAF. It's like 1 gallon to like 0.7 gallons of SAF. I don't know the science behind that exactly, but
it takes 1.6 gallons of ethanol to make a gallon of SAF.
Yeah. In my 15 years around the corn growers and the development of the RFS, for years we've been asking, what's the next ethanol in terms of corn demand? Well, I think we've answered. The next ethanol is ethanol.
Excellent. Excellent. Anthony, good point. We need to take a break, guys, but I want to come back to that. The next ethanol is ethanol. We'll play off that a little bit more. We got the Farmer Forum going. Greg in Nebraska and Anthony in Ohio.
AgriTalk is brought to you by Acuron. Discover 5 to 15 more bushels per acre with Acuron corn herbicide. Acuron is a restricted use pesticide.
Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm your host.
Are you boogieing a little bit, buddy? You got a Wednesday morning boogie going? You boogieing just a little bit to that there?
A little bit.
All right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Good. Just a little.
No doubt. Yes, exactly right. Thanks for waking me up there, Davis.
Happy to do it.
That's good stuff. All right. Welcome back to AgriTalk. I'm Chip. That is Davis. We got a Farmer Forum going. with Greg Anderson from Nebraska, Anthony Bush from Ohio. Anthony, you made a great observation at the end of the last segment. For so long, corn growers have been wondering what the next ethanol would be. Well, lo and behold, the next ethanol is ethanol when we look at this ethanol to jet transition. And when there's a lot of the industry is pulling in the same direction on this right now, isn't it, Anthony?
They are.
Yeah.
I attended the Growth Energy Conference down in Marco Island, Florida back in December there. And Emily Skor and her team put on an incredible conference and very top level speakers. And it is all the talk. I mean, when you've got airlines showing up at a Growth Energy Conference, for the first time in 15 years, they need us.
Yeah.
And that has been very welcome. We are getting meetings with the American Petroleum Institute, who hated us for years and didn't want anything to do with us. So things have changed, and we've got to be ready to accept that change and make our product what they want.
Yeah. Good point. So ethanol is the next ethanol. The soybean guys and soybean oil have been wondering what's the next big move for the bean market. And Greg, here we sit basically with where ethanol was in 2005, 2007 when it comes to bean oil and its growth potential, right?
That's exactly right. Over the last 3 decades, the biodiesel industry's growth has enabled the soybean market's growth, because soybean oil is still roughly half of the feedstock for the 4 billion gallons of biodiesel and renewable diesel produced in the U.S. in 2023. Now we are using, the clean fuel industry is currently using more than 1 billion pounds soybean oil each month. And put that in perspective, as you were saying, 20 years ago, the biodiesel industry used that much for the entire year.
Yeah.
So Clean Fuel's vision of 6 billion gallons of fuel production will call for about 18 billion pounds of soybean oil annually, and that's about 1.5 billion pounds per month if we maintain that 50% market share, which I'm confident we will with soybeans.
Mm-hmm. Greg, I remember
that's extremely important for the corn grower also, because most corn growers grow a lot of soybeans too. So this is definitely something we're all very interested in.
Yep. Greg, I remember when it got to 3 billion pounds and it was just like, holy mackerel, did you ever think we'd get here? Well, now look at it. It's just, it's absolutely incredible. All right, let's switch gears here just a little bit for the last couple of minutes. Anthony, you were talking to me about some issues with last year's corn crop that's stored in the bin over there in the Eastern Belt. What's going on?
Vomitoxin, everybody's favorite word.
Yeah.
We didn't have it as bad this year in Ohio as we had it in 2020. It is just something that's kind of, we've had it in wheat in Ohio before, but for it to come into the corn industry the way it has in the Eastern Corn Belt is very top of mind to most Ohio farmers, because they've either had it this year, they had it last year. So the Ohio Corn Marketing Program, which I'm chairman of this year, is working with the Ohio State University and lots of interest in this. There was just a meeting at Beck's headquarters in Atlanta, Indiana on Monday. There were people from the seed industry there, other corn grower organizations, the millers associations, exporters are all very interested in this. So we're funding a huge, well over a $1 million 3-year project with Ohio State to work on cleaning. Purdue University, I believe, is involved in it also, on techniques for cleaning the grain once you have it. But we're also really pushing to do research on, is there a way we can mitigate it after we have it?
Yeah.
That's the real question farmers are wanting to know. And, so, and the seed breeders, is there a way we can breed it out of it? Previously it seemed like the seed industry has basically said that's a grain issue, not a seed issue. I think there's enough interest in it now that They're working on it, but one of the things we have noticed, the highest concentrations of vomitoxin are your highest yielding hybrids sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of research to be
Interesting.
done on how to mitigate it with, maybe fungicides, timing of application. We know it's something that you have to hit the green silk of the ear for any fungicide to be effective to control it. So, drone application is going to be studied, aerial application, wide, drop nozzle, all kinds of different methods of application and what's the most effective. And then yet,
Very cool.
what do we do with it after we have it? How do we deal with it?
Right. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, it used to be the answer was blended off, but that doesn't need to be the answer, and it's not the acceptable answer any longer in many cases. So, yeah, good stuff.
The solution to pollution is dilution. But we gotta be able to figure this out.
Right.
The market is so weird about it. The year I had it, I hauled almost all of my corn to Cincinnati, which is a 160-mile one-way drive. I really don't want to do that very often.
Yep. Good.
So, but
okay.
One elevator, it's a problem. You haul it to the river, and it's not a problem.
Right.
So
right.
we got to figure those issues out.
Right. Greg, got about 30 seconds here. How many years beans on beans will this be for you?
About 31, Chip. Yeah. I know I'm an anomaly out here, but it's been working, and we got to get this feedstock for biodiesel and renewable diesel, right? So I'm doing my part.
You bet. You know it. We'll be checking in with you and seeing how it's going, okay? You guys
do that. Yep.
Man, you bought the good stuff today. Good stuff, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Greg.
Yep, that is Anthony Bush over in Ohio, Greg Anderson, Eastern Nebraska. You guys come back this afternoon. We're going to get you ready for tomorrow's reports. Matt Campbell from StoneX Group.